First of all, let us give a charity. I forgot to give charity today. Let's give charity. You have to give, never too late to give charity. Put it in the charity box, and afterwards we'll give it to poor people. There's a lot of them. And charity saves from death. Charity saves from all bad things. Charity brings the geula, brings the future redemption. Let's also say a word of praise to the creator of the universe. Hodu Lashem Kitov Kilo Chazdo. Thanks to God because he is good, and to the world is his kindness, and his kindness is also infinite. Kilo Olam. God does it all alone. Now we're explaining the greatness of Moses and the idea that Moses was saved all the Jewish people from destruction because Haman wanted to destroy the Jews, and he was a big sorcerer, Haman, and he had it all figured out according to Kabbalah, according to spiritual mysticism and the occult and all this stuff. He had it all figured out that Adar is the worst month for the Jews and the best month for the enemies of the Jews. And the reason is because Adar didn't have any holidays in it. This is before he made a holiday. And Adar is the month of the zodiac, is the zodiac of fish, which fish are eaten by each other. We're going to eat up the Jews. And also Adar was the month that Moses died. So he had these three things against the Jews. There was nothing good in the month of Adar. And so he was very happy that when he threw these dice, they came out to destroy the Jews in the month of Adar. But there was one thing he didn't know, and that was that Moses was born in the month of Adar. So the Rebbe said, okay, so he was born. First of all, number one, he was born. He also died in that month. So let's say that makes it equal, knocks it out. But you still have the two things, that the month is a month with no holidays in it, and it's a month that the zodiac is bad. He says, don't worry. The fact that Moses was born in that month negates anything that's bad. Anything bad. You could have 1,000 bad things that happened in the month of Adar. Adar is the most unlucky month of the Jewish people, whatever. But if Moses was born in that month, that negates all the bad things. Because the very existence of Moses, that's the game changer. It says, therefore, he transformed that the month of Adar, instead of saying that it has a bad mazala, it came out to have the best mazal of all. Mazal means fortune. The best mazal of all. Ayin, the essence of God. Ein mazal Yisrael. Ayin is the mazal of the Jewish people. The mazal, the fortune of the Jewish people, depends only on God. That's pretty good. That's why we're so happy. Also, we can also add on to what it says. The seventh day of Adar. Adar is good. The seventh day of Adar is even better. Why? Oh, there we go. 1 second. Let's move this over here. 7, the seventh day of Adar, that's today. 7th of Adar, that's when Moses was born, right? The 7th of Adar, this indicates on a certain wholesomeness, completeness of the month of Adar. 7 days in a row, Shav Yamim Ritzufim, 7 consecutive days, Shekolalim Kol Shivat Yamei Ashavua, which include all the 7 days of the week. Shivat Yamei Breshit, the 7 days of creation. Yamei Binyan, those are the days that the whole world was created in them. Kafi Shein, as they are in the month of Adar. Shebezeh, that in this, Romazet, it's hinted at, Shemaila, Veshlemos, the Chodesh Adar, that the excellence and the completion of the month of Adar, which we said before, Adir b'marom Hashem, that God is exalted, high up. God is Adir, means high, exalted. Adir. This is drawn down into 7, into the world. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but it's a big mystery why God created the world in 7 days. Why didn't he just create the world? That's all. He could have created the world God created the world from nothing, right? So how long does it take to create something from nothing. Well, when there's nothing, so there's no time. Time is the relationship between two things. How long it goes from this point to this point, that's time. So before the world was created, there was nothing. If there was nothing, it means there was no time either. There was no time. So how long does it take to go from nothing to something? There's no time. Time was just created. There's no time. So there's no, it's not so. It takes 7 days. What do you mean it takes 7 days? Why 7 days? How'd you get 7 days out of the business? Right? Maybe say 7 seconds, 7 milliseconds or something like that. No, 7 days. Why 7 days? Because that's what God decided. God made the world in a certain plan, in a certain order. It's called the book. There's a book which is called the Sefer Yetzirah. It talks about the order and the plan that God made the world with the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the letters, because God created the world from speech. Anyway, so the number 7 has a tremendous significance to us and to the world and to creation and to reality. So to speak, the completion of reality is 7. 7 days, that finishes the whole thing. And even now today, I think all over the world, I've never been in the world, they count 7 days and then they start over again. 7 days. Napoleon tried to make a 10-day week. Napoleon, I think there's even places in France that wanted to do it, right? So to get as far away from the Torah and from God as possible. Napoleon was going to be God. He made a 10-day week, which is logical, sort of. I mean, why not? Instead of having 4 weeks of 7 days, let's make 3 weeks of 10 days. Huh? Why not? And so it comes out at different times of the year. It doesn't. I don't think it was a bad idea, actually, what he did, Napoleon. He was a pretty clever guy, Napoleon. But it didn't last. It didn't work out. It didn't hold out, even though maybe it's more convenient or something like that. You have a 9-day work week or something like that, instead of a 6-day work week. Whatever it was, he had an idea, but it didn't hold on. Why didn't it hold on? Who knows? Somehow it's ingrained in human personality and human psyche that there's a 7-day week. 7-day week. That's it. Week is 7 days. I'm sorry, I'm not an expert in what's called anthropology or something like that. I don't know how it is in the totally non-Western nations. Is it that way in China? Is it that way in Tibet? I don't know. I'll look it up. I guess I'll look it up and find out. Maybe nowadays that it's spread out over the world. In any case, 7 days is somehow or other ingrained in human personality. That's it. Why? Because God created the world in 7 days. Maybe they don't know that, but that's the fact. So 7 is somehow or other completion. The 7th day of Adar, that shows on the completion of the whole content of the month of Adar. And this is also hinted at in the name of the month. Adar is Aleph, Dar. Now you have to remember again that the world was created from God's speech. So God's speech is not part of the world. These letters are the source of the world. It's not that the world is in the letters. Right? I'm sorry. Not that the letters are part of the world. Letters, you have in the libraries full of books. That's part of the world. It says that's one type of letters, but there's other letters that God created the world. That's the Torah. Those are letters which are above the world. So let's look at some of these letters. The month of Adar is Aleph Dar. This hints at drawing down the Aleph, which that's God, Aluf Shalom. God is called the master of the world. Olam, into the world. Liot lo dira, that God wants that there should be a dwelling in this physical world. Aleph, oneness of God. Dar, to dwell in the world. And even a bigger emphasis on the 7th day of Adar. The 7th day of Adar, this is talking about, so Adar in general is talking about making God, Aleph, dwell in the world, Dar. The 7th day of Adar, this shows making a dwelling for God, Aleph, in the 7 days of creation. And this is stressed especially in the birthday of Moses. That Moshe was born on the 7th day of Adar. Adar hints at making God, Aleph, Dar in the world. Number 7 is the completion of that. Like the rabbis say, when Moses was born, Nitmale Habayit Kula Or. It says that they saw the boy and he was good. Tovu, and Tov means light. When Moshe was born, the house was filled with light. Hainu, Shaladat Moshe, that the birth of Moshe caused light to be revealed in the whole house. House means generally the world. The fact that Moshe was born the seventh day of Adar was a big miracle. The house was filled with light. Umurgash or, it's stressed even more, Yoter, the avodaton, the work of Moshe's work, what he did in the course of his life. That this was generally in the day that he was born. I just want to take a 1 minute break over here. It's just in 1 minute. Oh, give me a break. How do I do this over here? Did I do this? I don't think I can do it. 1 second. I'm sorry for the short break. Here we go back to the. So Moses was born in the seventh day of Adar. And the month of Adar hints at Aleph, which is God, Dar, dwelling in the world. And the seventh day indicates completion. 7 days, God created the world. So the month of Adar in general means making God revealed in the world in the seventh day. When Moses was born, then it says that his whole house filled with light. In other words, the house is referring to the world. And Moses, just the fact that he was born, the house was filled with light. The world was filled with light. This is even stressed more what Moses did in his whole life. What did Moses do his whole life? Moses had a very difficult life, if you think about it. He was born in the worst conditions where the children were being killed right and left. And for some amazing way, he escaped this whole business. He was put into a little box in the water, and he was saved. He was brought up in the house of Paro, and he had to run away, and was almost killed several times. It says, but nevertheless, what did the main thing that Moshe did in his life? By means of Moses' work, he made the Mishkan. Eventually, he made the tabernacle. As by means of this made the completion of God's desire, why he made the world, that he should be revealed in the world. Why did the Jewish people have to have, we talked about this last week, why did the Jewish people have to have a little tent? And eventually this morphed into the Holy Temple. And then why did the Jewish people have to have a building? It's so important to have a building. When the building was destroyed, this is the worst thing that could happen to the Jews, the destruction of the temple. We mourn for it and we cry, we fast. The temple was destroyed. It was just a building. Such a big deal. Judaism is dealing with God. God is infinite. You can't destroy God. God is everywhere. What do we care if a little building got ruined? He says, no, that's the whole point. The point of the Jewish people is to reveal God in the world, how precious this physical world is to God. And that's what Moses began. He began this whole reversal of bringing God into the world. He actually culminated it, really, bringing God into the world. It was begun bringing God back into the world. It was driving God away from the world. That was begun by Adam when he ate from the tree. And Abraham was the first one to begin to bring it back, until Moses was the seventh generation from Abraham. And he brought it into the world when he made the tabernacle. Like it says in the Midrash, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, when they came Rosh Chodesh Nisan, that was the first day of Nisan, almost 1 year after the Jews left Egypt, the first day of Nisan, Tziva, God commanded to set up the tabernacle in the desert. Shalach lehem, so it was sent to him by means of Moses, Moshe, Ma atem yirim, why are you afraid? You Yisrael, the Jewish people were saying, Hari asinu mishkan matai tavo hashchina b'tishra b'toch ma'aseh yadenu. We already made the Mishkan. Maybe God's presence is not going to be there. Kavar boti lagani, as God said, I've already been here before. Boti lagani achoti kala. God said, don't worry about me being in the world. I was already here before. When I created the world, Adam was in this place called Gan Eden, and I was there with him before he ate from the tree. You're just bringing him back. Omer Rabbi Yishmael ben Serayos says, Legan ein kativ kan, el legani leganuni. Says not that Adam was just in a garden, but he was in a ganuni. Ganuni is a wedding canopy where God was together with man. That was where the wedding was before, 2,000 years ago. Right, the Jewish people received the Torah like 2,500 years after the world was created. So it says God was here 2,500 years ago. We're just returning him back. Because God's presence, God didn't want this world. When God created the world, he didn't want to be here. That's the whole reason he created the world. The world is tremendously, tremendously important. The world is really God's home. This physical world, this is God's home. This is where God wants to be. Does that make any sense? Of course it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. God doesn't make any sense. God creates the world. That doesn't make any sense. But the fact is that God creates the world and he wants to be here by means of our deeds. That the world will be perfect. Just like a farmer. Right? You want your crops to grow up. Right? So what do? You have to plow. You have to plant. You have to water. And then they grow up. But it's a miracle how things grow up. The same thing was with the world. You do what God wants in the world, then things grow up. Then the world becomes a wonderful, beautiful place. This is where God wanted to be. The world becomes godly when we do what God wants. But we didn't do what God wants. Now says Moses, we're going to do what God wants. We're going to make the tabernacle. And it's going to be the first time in history since Adam that God is going to be back here again. Since that Adam sinned, the Shekhinah went away to the first heaven. It says it went away from the earth to the heaven. And since the subsequent sins that the Jewish people did, is finally they drove the Shekhinah away to the seventh heaven. And corresponding to that, there were 7 Tzaddikim, and these 7 Tzaddikim, which started with Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they drew the Shekhinah back down to the world. Abraham drew it from the 7th heaven to the 6th, and Yitzchak until Moshe. And Moses, he was the 7th, and he drew the Shekhinah back into the world. That's God's presence in the world. He brought the Shekhinah from the upper worlds into the lower worlds. You can ask a question why it has to be in a little building. It has to be so complicated that everything has to be. Look at a human being. A human being is alive. Human being. It has to be. All of the veins have to be exactly going right. If one vein bursts or something, you got big problems. A little corpuscle or something like that, it breaks inside of a person. It's big problems. Life, in order for life to be to be active, is it has to have an exact vessel. Is that's what the Holy Temple was. The Holy Temple was the exact, like the heart of the world. And Moses was the one who made it. Excuse me. When was the Mishkan built? It was built on the first day of Nisan. When did it actually, the Chilat had come at the Mishkan? The 7 days of there were 7 days of preparation. Then Moses put up the Mishkan and he took it down. It was the last 7 days of the month of Adar. When was the tabernacle finished? That was open for business. It was the first day of Nisan. What's the month before Nisan? This month, Adar. This last 7 days of Adar was when Moses was preparing and making the Mishkan. He said he stood it up and he took it down and took it up. The month of Adar, from the 23rd day of Adar until Yesh Lomar, we can say that the beginning of the month of Adar is stressed even more. This power of the Aleph, the Adar, Rosh at the beginning of the word Adar, Shalamayla Me'olam, which is above the world. Adir b'Merom Hashem. In the continuation of the month, and mainly in the 7th day of Adar, which in it was born Moshe. So if so, the tabernacle was stood up on the first day of Nisan. On the first day of Nisan, the preparation of it was from the last days of Adar. And that's the idea of the revelation of the greatness of God, Adir b'Merom, and especially the end of the month of Adar, when they were preparing God's presence to be revealed in the world in the Mishkan. Excuse me. Aleph Dar by means of the Mishkan. So the whole entire month of Adar, therefore, is devoted to holiness. The 7th day of Adar is the day that Moses was born, and the last 7 days of Adar were the days when was the preparation, the final preparations for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle. but also in the end of the month of Adar, that in it was begun these the erection of the temple, of the tabernacle. As Moshe stood up the Mishkan, the Shemesh Bo, Pirko, that he says that he worked in the Mishkan for 7 days and he took it apart. Every day he put it together and took it apart. In the 7 days, it's called the 7 days of inauguration. For Lo Shartu B'Shechina, all these days that Moses prepared, he prepared the Mishkan. The Shechina still didn't reveal itself there. There was not revelation of godliness in the world. God was very high in the upper worlds. Now, what this means exactly, God's presence was in the temple, I don't know. I've never seen this happen before. I don't know if it's really explainable what it is before, but I do know that when people go to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, go to the Wailing Wall, something happens to people. Something happens to people over there, the Wailing Wall. There is a big tefillin stand over there of Chabad, which I think was begun by Rebbe Moshe Weber of blessed memory, and a tefillin stand, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people put on tefillin every day. Jewish people that never put on before in their lives. They go to now you think the Wailing Wall is just it's a historical artifact, like they go to see the pyramids. They go to it's just a wall. Why do they feel godliness? I know that it was a very surprising thing. And there is an exhibition about the 6-Day War, and they have a recording over there that the I guess he was the general, maybe the general. His name was Matagor. He was a major general, whatever it was, and he was in charge of all the troops that went in. This is what in 1948, 47, 47. When was it? Yeah, 40. So he said, he recorded it. He said, the temple is in our hands. He said, the wall is in our hands. We have Jerusalem. And then he says, I'm not a religious man, and I never was. These are the Israelis, the Zionists. They were anti-religion, anti-everything. The most terrible thing you could say is that we are the chosen people. That's just rattles their spinal cord. God forbid. But anyway, and he said like this. I heard it. I cried. He said, "It's a recording." He said it in Hebrew, so it's a little bit better in Hebrew than in English. But he said, "I am not a religious person, and I never was a religious person." He said, "But I'm touching the stones of the wall, the Western Wall, and I'm overcome with emotion." That's what he said. He said, "Ani lo adam dati ve'af pam lo hayiti dati, aval ani nogea be'avnei hakotol v'ani mitragesh." It was important enough for him to say it. He said, "I'm touching the wall." No, it was just a historical thing. It made absolutely no sense, right? No sense. Why didn't give it away? Then there was another guy, anyway, another Rosh Memshalah, the most unsuccessful Rosh Memshalah of all. And he was there for just a while, and he was willing to give away everything to the Arabs, everything. He was willing to give them everything they wanted to, but he could not bring himself to give them the Kotel. He couldn't give them the Western Wall. Anything they wanted, he would give them. He had no connection to Judaism, to God, to the Torah, to anything whatsoever. Jews by him are just like normal people, whatever. But he couldn't bring himself to give the Kotel. Now he's caught up in this Epstein thing. This guy is a real low life. But in any case, but he couldn't bring him. Even this person, he couldn't bring himself to get. There's something about it that it just felt there was something godly over there. There's something not understandable. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe 1,000 times. Anyway, whatever it was, Moses set up the tabernacle and he took it down. And all those 7 days that he set it up, there was no revelation of God there. Why? Because God's presence was still above. The ikar, the main thing of the drawing down of godliness in the temple, was when it was done, but often shall kiviyot in a set way, was on the first day of Nisan. That's when it was finished. It was open for business. That's when the Shekhinah started to be revealed there. That's what's called Yom HaShmini Shemaluim. There's even a Torah portion of it, Yom HaShmini. That was the day that Nadav and Avihu rushed in and they died. This was drawn down in a more permanent way afterwards, and the 12 days, which came after ensuing days, what is it? And by the 12 princes, leaders of the Jewish tribes, and the 12 days from Rosh Chodesh Nisan until the 12th day of Nisan. One Nasi Echad Bayom, each day another one of the heads of the tribes would bring in his Parshas Naso, you see. Then this is stressed even more, the drawing down of godliness into the world. 12 days it took to actually make it firm, permanent, God's presence. That's the 12 different permutations of God's name. That's also in that book, Sefer Yetzirah, the number 12. God's name is from Lashon Mahaveh. The God is the creator. God is the creator of the world. By means of this, revealing the creator of the world in the world, Sha'al Yadam, by means of these 12 days, God was drawn into the 12 months of the year, the 12 hours of the day, what's called the 12 Gavuli Alaksan, the 12, so is one way of this, the 12, what's called the borders of time. Hainu Shagam Bagidre Olam, also in the world, is drawn down and revealed godliness which is above the world. And that's the whole idea of the month of Nisan. The month of Nisan, coming month. That's the word nes, miracle. And nisi nisim, until miracles of miracles. So that's the whole idea that we're talking about. What Moses' whole point is, the whole essence of what Moses is, and what the whole point of the Jewish people is, to reveal the Creator in the creation, to reveal the Creator in every aspect of the creation. The 7 days of creation, the 12 months of the year, the 12 hours of the day, that God should be revealed every single instant in the creation. And when that has happened, and that everyone in the world acts according to what God wants, then the world becomes a beautiful, miraculous place. That's Moshe's job. That's the job of Moshe. So if so, we can see that's the month of Adar that we're in now, when Moshe was born. So this is the happiest month of the year, because that's the month when meaning and blessing came to the world. That's why it says that Adar is the month when the Jewish people, it's a healthy, fortunate month for the Jewish people. As we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Okay.